right. Good day, good afternoon, good evening, my people. It's Mr. Al Pete, and I am here. I haven't did the formal introduction of the podcast, but we're doing. This is the Color Jacks Blue podcast, hosted by me. This is where we're going to inform the inform, and we're going to take this dive and this journey into the whole aspect of voting with everything that's going on right now. Everybody knows it's all on the news. It's everywhere. We talk about it all the time, and we definitely want to focus on our community and get as much information as possible to them. So, thank you so much for the people that's tuned in. This will be on audio as well. Please go follow Color Jacks Blue on Instagram, JAXBLUE, and go follow us on Spotify as well. We're working our ways up to get on Apple and Google, et cetera, et cetera. So, without further ado, because this is kind of like a very like improv type thing, I was like, maybe I could just go live and get the people to watch it or whatnot. I need to tag Color Jacks Blue in it, but I'll get to it later. But today, this is our first interview for the podcast. This sir is highly respected by me, highly respected by the community. He's president, chief staff of Eighth and Whitner Group LLC, and I was introduced to Mr. Charles Griggs probably through DJing, Popular Smoke or something like that, or 100 Black Men, all of that stuff that he's respectfully done, and he does a lot more, and he's I guess a host. Recurrent host of the First Coast Connect. Did I say that correct?
You got that right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so you can find him on there as well, giving us the good news, man. So, introducing Mr. Charles Griggs. How are you, good sir?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for making me your inaugural guest of this wonderful podcast. And
so. It's an honor, man. It's an honor. So, small backstories before we get into it. I remember I called you maybe like a month or so ago.
It was a while. Yeah, it was about a month and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I called you out, and this is when the whole George Floyd situation happened. So it's a couple of days shortly after that.
Yeah.
And it was just in my spirit. I was like, man, let me call my brothers, and you definitely was the first person. I was just like, let me call Mr. Griggs and see how he doing mentally and stuff like that. And that conversation was like very, very great for me to for us to have, because it just felt good for another Black man to be feeling the way that he feels. So we talked about that, but then we started getting into a lot of like the political talk, which we don't really have to get into, but a lot of that shine light on the legislative aspects of things when it comes to Jacksonville or just everywhere when it comes to voting. I mean, to be frank. Yeah. So I want this conversation to be that, like, I'm just I have my thoughts on it, and as going forward in this podcast, a lot of people will start to know I don't really care much for voting. I do vote though, and I do my diligence to do it, but I don't want to deny that I don't like it. So. Yeah. If I feel like that, I'm sure it's a lot of other people in our communities that feel 10 times deeper than that.
Yeah, it's a messy process, and I can understand why people feel disconnected from it. And first of all, let me say, thank you for reaching out to me that evening, because that was a common thing, and it still is, among people of color now who are really sort of searching for what we should be doing in this moment, because the whole George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery situation really sort of, was a real hammer and nail situation where a lot of people all of a sudden woke up, and a lot of people who don't look like us woke up, and all of a sudden felt like they had been informed on something that they hadn't been informed on before, and for us, like I've taken many phone calls, and a lot of them have been with people who I work with in the community, people I do business with, and just be frank, white people who are concerned, who want to know what they can do, and how do you feel and what do you think we got to do to move forward.
Right.
But it's a good feeling to know that when you hear from people in the community, people who that they're concerned about you and they're also looking for a way forward. I know that this time is different. We feel like this time is different than when we normally hear about things going on and we get into uproar and we protest and so forth. And there's a thing in the community we call the 15-day rule. Is when Black people get angry and we'll scream and shout, and then 15 days later it all subsides, and that's pretty much what the establishment is looking for, is for like it to die down, all of the ruckus to die down. Yeah. And that's typically because we don't have, we get emotional about things without having a plan, a way to kind of analyze what's really happened and then figure out solutions to that problem, and then point people in the right direction where they can take action. We saw a lot of that during the civil rights movement for those of us who are old enough. And for those of you who are not, you can certainly research it. But none of that was done in the civil rights movement. All that was planned. That was strategy from day one. Sit-ins, marches, all of that was strategy with an end in mind. And so we've seen, in my opinion, I think what we're seeing now is something that we've been longing to do as a community collectively, not only just African Americans, not only just Black people, people of color, but we're seeing a lot of white people who are engaged in this process now as well, because people are feeling that something is wrong and something's been wrong for a long time. So I understand why people feel disconnected from voting and participating in the political process, because it's been empty. For so many years, it's been, things have not been delivered. We have not been able to see results from our progress and our struggle. A lot of folks equate the election of Barack Obama with an amount of success, and it was a remarkable achievement to have an African American voted in as president of the United States. However, with any beginning, there is the opportunity to maintain whatever progress is being made. And I think that we all sort of fell asleep during those 8 years thinking that we had reached our pinnacle, when we really had, this was the beginning. We really needed that's when we really needed to start grinding more and harder.
Yeah. So with that, what you saying that a lot of people, I know a lot of people don't think of it in that regards. Like, everybody's like, okay, we want change, but then they want to fast forward and get to the ending of the change, but they don't think about like the beginning of it. So, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, but the interview with you and Obi, man, it was really, 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 like, I was like, yeah, I listened to it, of course, because I'm a podcaster, but at the same time too, I just respect you both of y'all like tremendously, and
appreciate that.
I want to say it might have been part one, where y'all spoke on the community, well, the people that vote. What was it? The people that vote. I'm trying to think real quick because it's like right in my head, but it's like the people that vote. Oh, we need to hold these people accountable, like the people that we vote in and stuff like that. When you said that, or when you or Obi said that, I was in my mind, I was thinking, I am guilty of just going to the ballots and voting, and then after that, like, not having some type of responsibility like put on these people. And when I say responsibility, I mean lightly. Like, y'all broke it down saying that, they get hired to do this job. And then, you got to hold these people accountable for the job that they're supposed to be doing. That part was powerful to me. And to reference you saying with the Obama situation, I do feel like that's a lack on, that's a fault on us, you know what I'm saying? Or just, the community or whoever was involved in that process. Name some things that we can do to kind of hold these people. I know we're going kind of fast forward. We're going to go back to that.
Sorry. So there are two ways to look at it. One is that, yes, we hire these elected officials to do a job. They're elected, not and in some cases, we like to feel like, oh, they may feel like they're selected, where people outside of the forces of the electorate have determined that they will be the person who represents the community. So, but when we elect them, they are essentially an employee of us, all of us, for whichever area you represent, whether it's a city council district, a school board district, a congressional district, on up the line. And we are the ones who should be making demands on the services that they are providing back to us. We all spend money every day. We all spend our tax dollars on helping our community maintain and grow. Mm-hmm. And if we're not getting our fair share of resources from the tax dollars that we put into it, because I don't care who you are, you're paying taxes, mm-hmm. right? So, and you should be getting a return for those taxes. And if you look around the community and you see things that look abnormal from other areas of the community, then you need to figure out or ask your representative, why is that? And if they're able to explain to you that there are significant discrepancies and disparities, and they can tell you what will fix it, or you can make recommendations of what will fix it, then it's up to us to hold them accountable for that. Now, the second part of this is that an elected official is only as good as the community who they represent. Mm-hmm. So if you are an elected official and you have a great idea, let's take example city council. There are 19 members of the city council, 19 voting members. And you live in, let's say, I don't know, let's just say District 9. And who happens to be represented by Councilman Garrett Dennis in this case. And let's say he has a great idea. And he shows up at committee meetings with his great idea, and probably 2 or 3 council members, for whatever reason, don't buy into it. But he knows, he believes in his mind and his heart that that idea is good for his community. Mm-hmm. If his community doesn't show up to the committee meetings, if his community doesn't show up to the council meetings to support that idea, to stand behind him on that idea, then he's less likely to be successful. They work together. They work together in tandem. So the community has to work with the elected official, and the elected official has to work with the community. And through that strength, you're able to see policy recommendations make their way forward on behalf of the citizens that they're supposed to be representing. And that's what we don't see. We often leave our elected officials to fend for themselves. And when they do that, especially in minority districts, minority areas, we'll look at here, Jacksonville, you have 4 district council members, 4 districts that are represented by, in the urban core, that are represented by African-American council members. Right. If they had one idea and the 4 of them got together, they still would have to convince 15 more council members to support that idea. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And that has an impact on the community. People have to be involved and engage with their own ideas and their own set of support in order to make the council members or any elected official successful. We're seeing a lot of that work now with the school district. School board members are highly engaged in what to do about students returning to school. And we've seen teachers and parents parade themselves through the school board meetings to give their input on what they believe should be the best solution. Mm-hmm. This is community at work. I've been impressed with it. And the administration, Dr. Green will put forward an idea. The board will support it with changes, and then they put forward that idea to the community, and the community responds, and they keep going back and forth until we can get compromise on what's best for the children. Right. So I think that's a great example of how this thing is supposed to work. In other areas, not so much.
Mm. Okay. So with all that you just explained, this is this is what the community is supposed to do. So it can't be just 2 or 3 people. It needs to be like a full range of people doing it, not just the influencers, not the regular Joe Blow. It needs to be like a collective effort, and all that really, it sounds like it won't happen, unless we vote. like
Yeah.
the simple part of voting. Like this, we can't even go into what you just spoke on until we actually vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And ironically, political consultants are some very well paid people. Their job is to tell the candidate what will and what will not work. A good political consultant can pretty much identify where the votes are going to be. They can predict, based upon the candidate's work in the community, their notoriety, how much money they spent campaigning, what their particular impact is going to be on the voters. We always know who the quote super voters are going to be, the people who return to the polls on a regular basis, people who've been voting ever since. There are people who've been voting since they were in their early 20s, and people who've been voting since they're in their mid 30s, and on and on. But the patterns are there for the folks who typically turn out. What you'd like to see is for new voters to begin to turn out and be engaged in the process. That's what's difficult. For all of the ruckus that goes on, we have a lot of activism going on. Young voters still largely don't perform at the level of super voters. So it would stand to reason that younger people, are the ones with the most to lose in any political race, because their future is being impacted by policies that are being developed and voted on, or people who are representing various policies.
Right.
So it would stand to reason that they would be the ones to run to the polls, knowing that the people who are being elected are going to have an influence on their life for the next 10 to 15 years. Right. Yeah, and it's the magic bullet would be to figure out what is going to get young voters to go to the polls who figure, and we understand why, because people feel like that they've been going through struggle all of their life. They've had various circumstances, negative circumstances, whether it's been their level of education, maybe they graduated, they didn't go to college, they're working a low-paying job, they're struggling to make child support, car payments, house note, and they don't really feel a connection to what difference it would make for them to vote, what impact that's going to have on their life. And you don't have to look very far to see the impact that policymakers have on one's life. You just need to look no further back than to the $1,200 payments everybody who paid taxes got a few months ago, right? Those are policymakers making those decisions. And people in there, if they didn't think that way, if they weren't thinking that this is something important to the citizens of the country, then that idea wouldn't have come forward, right, and it wouldn't have been sustained.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I was. So when you just explained the younger generation not coming out to vote, like I remember being in that boat. Like I remember being that person. I remember. I remember like looking back. I might have been like 21, 22, and I remember looking back like, well, grandma used to work the polls. My grandma, she was a housewife, but my grandma used to work the polls. But like nobody said nothing about the processes of voting or who were the people that were representing our district and our community. Even they would say these people would do it, but we didn't see it. You know what I'm saying? We would just go to school, go to church, and we would never see it. So by the time I'm 21, 22, I'm like, I don't have to do this. And I'm like, I don't see the point of doing it. And then it dawned on me maybe, my late 20s when might have been like my early 30s, but I'm 41 for the people that's listening, but like in my 30s, I just remember that one. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know it was a big thing about Medicaid and all that. And I was like, this is going to affect my granddaddy, which he was living at the time. And then they was talking about funding when it come to the schools, and my son was like in elementary school or something like that. So that's when I really like took it like, all right, Pete, you need to be paying attention to this. You know what I'm saying? And as the years go by, even now, like I'm like, let me get serious about it. Even though I do feel like I have a good little bit of knowledge, but I'm always open to getting the new stuff. And even with all that, I do have I question that stuff too. I'm like, I know people that like protest like crazy, but they would not go to the ballot, go and vote. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's fortunately, unfortunately, what we have to do in America. Like, we got to vote, and we have
Yeah.
to and outside of voting, we have to make sure that we understand what we're voting for, the situations and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you're expecting someone who has a habit. You know their pattern. You know their habits of the way they do things, and then you talk to them over and over again, and you want them to do something different. They're not going to. You have to get rid of them and get someone else who
Mhm,
will. You right now, you have a president who's in his 70s. He's been privileged all his life, and anybody who is surprised by his behavior, or whether you support him or not, if you're surprised by his behavior, that he won't change, or he won't change his mind, or he won't come around. You don't understand how can he understand? He doesn't have to. You know, he's not going to change. So if you don't like what he's doing, then you have to change the person that's there. If you don't understand why that's important, um, if you support what he's doing, then yeah, you go out and you campaign for him. But from where I sit, and the people who I talk with, and the people who I talk to on a regular basis, it almost seems as if policies that are coming out of politicians from a conservative standpoint have not benefited them, at least on the surface.
mhm,
I'm a Democrat, but I think I'm a very conservative Democrat. I think most black people are too. I think most black people, they think they're liberal, but when it comes to some of these ideologies, they're very conservative. What
mhm.
they want is compassion. What we want is compassion. We want to know that you actually care about people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that your politics reflect that.
Mhm.
And then we don't mind being so conservative. But I think what we get a lot of times is that people feel like the only way that we can get compassion is for us to go so far to the left that we have to meet somewhere close to the middle. And
Mm.
that's unfortunate. There used to be a time when politicians were proud of the fact that they could discuss ideas and ideology and meet somewhere in the middle. That was a good thing. Compromise was a good thing.
Mhm.
And now the environment is so toxic to, one side can get in trouble with their supporters if they were caught talking to the other side.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
some of my best friends are conservatives and Republicans. I don't hate them because of the way they think. Um, we do have some very robust discussions.
Mhm.
Um, but if that friend, if I didn't think that friend was a good representative of my ideals, then I would try to replace them with someone who could. If they didn't want to listen to reason, then I would definitely try to replace them with someone who could. So there are ways to get it done. And if you look around you, everything you see, everything you do is being influenced and touched by policy. So we have to be cognizant of that. Everything, every single thing, from how long the traffic lights stay lit until body cameras. You
Mhm.
know, um, the things that bubble up to the top that we hear about all the time are just the tip of the iceberg. But
Mhm.
there are small things that go on and occur that are buried within laws that were passed years ago, and some that were passed just months ago. They
Mhm.
have a they have a real impact on our daily lives.
Mhm. And well, it's local and nationally that you're speaking, correct? As far as
Absolutely,
like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
So let's speak on the local aspect of it. Like, what do you think could what need to be done? Like,
Well,
so yeah, what need to be done? Let's just be straight up about that, because I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm about that action too. Like that
yeah,
whole not, you know, we can
yeah,
talk all day and complain all day about this person, this and the third, but I'm all about the action. We
yeah,
spoke on that before we even hit
yeah.
play. Like, like not complaining. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna complain about it. I'm just gonna try to fix the problem.
Yeah. So one of the significant problems here in locally in Jacksonville is that there is a debate about consolidation. As you know, Jacksonville is a very large city in area-wise. We're a consolidated city, and that means that the entire county is counted as the city of Jacksonville, with the exception of, why don't you say, Beaches and Baldwin. They still have separate municipalities, but they're still counted as Duval County in one huge city. Mm-hmm. So when we talk Metro Jacksonville, we're talking about consolidated city of Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. All of that power is run out of one administration that controls all of that. That occurred back in 1968. And the thought at the time was that if we consolidate, because the urban core of Jacksonville, which is the downtown area and mostly those 4 council districts that I mentioned earlier, was the urban core, which was while it was growing, it wasn't people weren't really, they were focused on growing the outer areas, the Mandarins, the Arlingtons, the Beaches areas, and so forth. Mm-hmm. But in order to fund that, in order to accelerate growth, the city leaders at the time thought that consolidation would be a good idea, because there'd be a shared expense for resources, the basic stuff like, fire, police, mm-hmm. Doing the roads, garbage collection. All of those things would be cheaper if we were consolidated area. Mm-hmm. If you've been to, like, I'll use it, Atlanta, for example. Atlanta sits in the heart of Fulton County, but Fulton County has about, 19, 20 municipalities. They have little cities all over the place, right? And all of them have their own governments. They have their own mayor, city managers, councils, and so forth. So that was about to happen in Jacksonville. At least that's what the city leaders thought at the time. Mm-hmm. And that's why they consolidated. Under this form of government, we have 19 council members, and 5 of them are at large, and the rest are district members. Mm-hmm. Then you have the administration, which is headed by the mayor. Mm-hmm. Over the last 50 plus years, we thought that in the early stages, through consolidation, that the urban core would continue to receive the resources that it was receiving at the time. It was through tax revenue. Mm-hmm. That was the area of town that was supposed to receive the most. Mm-hmm. The promise of consolidation was it would be even better. Right. Well, that did not occur. And there's plenty of evidence to say that consolidation was the arbiter of the sort of the neglect that the urban core has seen through the growth of outer areas of town. You've seen tremendous growth, and the dollars have followed these particular areas, whether it's development, commercial development, residential development. All of those things have been growing at large and faster paces, and you see nothing going in the urban core. Well, now, after 50 years, people have started to pay attention to the outcomes and saying that neglect has gone on too long, and this needs to be addressed. The only way that we're going to catch up the part of Jacksonville that has been neglected for so long is for this city to invest in it as a priority. That would mean hundreds of millions of dollars to be invested in the urban core because of more than 50 plus years of neglect. This is a political priority in my mind, because if it doesn't happen, then we're going to continue to see the type of neglect that we've seen over the last 50 years. When I say neglect, I'm talking about the lack of good-paying, well-paying jobs in the urban core. We need to see the type of infrastructure that's needed in order to make our communities safe. Robust park systems, green space, an area where businesses don't mind developing and growing. We only have, I think there's only one building on in Northwest Jacksonville that's taller than 2 stories, right? And we need that type of commercial development to be spurred in this area of town so that people can have their own jobs and develop their own communities and have pride. This would spur, in my mind, more Black-owned businesses in the urban core, people hiring people from the community. When all these things are working in unison, guess what happens? You see a drop in crime. You see better health outcomes. You see education rates go up. So all of these things occur over time. Nobody says it's going to be fixed overnight, but it will occur over time with the proper investment. Our political leaders need to be investing in this right now, and they need to be addressing these issues right now, and not around the edges, but full throttle down the middle investment in the urban core, reclaiming our community.
Yeah. So, do you feel like that's something that the community can do before the voting aspect of it? I mean, is it as simple as, oh well, let me just pay attention to see what this person is talking about and what they say they're going to do and stuff like that? Like, is that a process that we can do before voting?
So
Or
there have been over time studies, initiatives that have looked at this issue and this problem, but we have not had a coordinated effort to address the overall situation and see the elected body of the city address it from a priority perspective. When I say priority, I'm talking about money. That's the one thing you know about politicians. Politicians, you know what their priorities are based on where they spend the money. And you can always just look at that and say, hey, he championed this or she championed that, how much money that went to, and that is their political priority. And so what we need is for consensus in that this is a problem, and this is something that should be invested in right now, over time. You may recall the Better Jacksonville plan back in Mayor Delaney's, Mayor Delaney's Better Jacksonville plan, which we most recently, I think, just finished paying for through a bond issue. It was a bond, but that's the type of long-term investment that would be needed. Billions of dollars, hundreds of millions into billions of dollars, specifically for the urban core, to really try to erase and correct all of the harm that's been done over the past 50 plus years. And it is, when you ask the question about, is there something we can look over now for the upcoming election? The answer is yes. I mean, we need to ask our elected officials, where are they on this? How do we plan on moving forward? Do even if they don't live in the district, are they sensitive to the issue? Mm-hmm. And if they don't live in the district and they're not sensitive to the issue, then that's where advocacy comes in to help them understand how severe this problem is.
Well, that's the problem that I have. That's one of the many problems I have with all this, right? You said the sensitive part of whatever subject, what have subject. I don't feel like people care. Like, I know politics and government policy, all that stuff. I equate that to the admin side of things, and that's what I like to call it, the admin side. I got the admin side, and I guess the creative side or whatever. So the admin side is the policies and things that keep straight and narrow or whatever. But I still feel like at the end of the day, like a lot of these people, I don't feel like they care as much. And I'm talking about the people we voting for.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say they don't care. I say they're moved to action by action. As citizens, we're responsible for making sure that they do what we tell them to do. We're responsible for holding them accountable. If your elected official, if you're a district council member or your state rep or your congressman or your senator, if they aren't moved to action by what you say, then you have to show them that you're serious about the issue that you're concerned about, and advocate for that and bring others to advocate for it. And don't just scream and shout. You have to come with information and solutions.
Yeah.
And I haven't met a politician and worked with a politician who did not want to follow a path to a solution. The problem is that most of the time they don't know what to do. They've heard or they've seen, but no one, when somebody comes to them and say, hey, this is a problem, and then they want them to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's my problem, I've kind of come to the table and said, hey, uh, outside of having potholes in my sidewalk, they know to pick up the phone and say, hey, Public Works, go down there and patch that pothole.
Yeah.
But if on a problem such as, like, I'm just talking about consolidation, I can go to my council member and say, hey, this has been going on for 50 years, and you need to do something about it. He or she's probably going to sit there and go, you know what, you're right, it is a problem. But if I went to them and said, this is a problem that's been going on for the last 50 years, here is what you should do. Bam, 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 right? And here is the information to back that up. And here are 100 people behind me to support you when you put this idea forward. That's how you get action. And if we find that people who don't really care, they'll care at that point. They'll care. Now, social media has changed a lot of how we do things, but but just a short time ago,
Jesus.
A short time ago, you would call your elected official and try to get an answer or try to get their attention on a particular issue. If you call, they might not call you back. But if 10 of you call, it would register on the radar. If 25 of you call, you got yourself a meeting.
Right.
But now, there's so many things going on with social media. It's hard for politicians to know if it's pure or not. You just have to kind of keep going at it and use whatever tools available in order to keep that issue on the radar.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm looking into this deep. I mean, I do have a tendency. I will admit that I do have a tendency to look at a lot of issues and a lot of just things in general, like, very deeply. And when I say deeply, meaning like I want these people to, like, care. Like, I want to, like, feel that you care. I understand that it's a policy thing and you got to have, like, multiple people behind you for that person to move. But I just still, like, I still have this doubt in my mind that it's just not genuine. I still have that person ain't genuine. Yeah. So with a person like me, well, you basically answered it. I ain't gonna ask. I was gonna ask you, say what are things that I could think about, but that'd be kind of crazy because I apply that a lot when I do my business. Like, I apply the caring part, and I know, okay, well, I need to work on this on a systematic tip or be on the admin side of it. So I was gonna ask you, for a person like me, what could we do? But you definitely you summed it up.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you feel like the politician doesn't care, challenge him. And challenge him by yourself. When I say by yourself, I mean, communication, letter, email, phone call. And if you don't get the response you're looking for, then challenge them with 5 more people or 10 more people and say, this is an issue. We like your response. We like your help and support. Then challenge them with 50 more people. One of the problems, I should say, is that as a part of the election process, politicians have to raise money, right, in order to fund their campaign.
Oh, man.
And when they do that, those people who give money to the campaign typically have access. And once you have enough access, then you have influence. Now, they'll tell you, just because someone gave me $100 doesn't mean that, that influenced my decision on a particular vote or issue. I would say probably 90% of the time that is true, that people who have access have influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother problem. Like, that's what on your show, y'all spoke on that. Y'all spoke on that aspect. Like, basically when we give the money, the person that gets the most money has basically the say. Money talks, and that's crazy.
If you look at some of these upstream campaigns, if you look at the people who are the campaign treasurers, the chief fundraiser, whoever, you can pretty much figure out who's influencing who at that point. And that's the thing I always tell people to look for, is that look at who's giving money to this candidate, And if those people's ideology don't align with yours, then you need to question this candidate to see if their ideology actually does align with yours, or if they are going to be able to come through, or are going to be able to hear you when it comes time to issues and ideas that you're going to be looking for support on, that you're sensitive about, that you're concerned about.
So basically, we need some Jay-Z money.
Yeah. I mean, just let's think about it now. Black candidates in African American districts typically are not financially independent, right? They have day jobs, and if somebody deems them a good candidate, then they're going to raise money for them. And when that person raises money for them, that means that they have access to them. Now, that means you have to deal with that donor's ideology and not the candidate. And I believe that most elected officials go into this with altruistic goals. They're going to be that change that they want to see everybody do. They're going to be independent.
Right.
And then when they get in the chair, they get quickly reminded who put them there. But that's just how the game is played. And so if you want to, work through that, then you have to find ways to support the candidates that you want to see in there. It's the same thing, really, as someone who doesn't listen to you, right? If you've been banging on the candidate and say, hey, I'd like to see, I like to see a grocery store in my neighborhood, and a candidate, that the elected official says, yeah, there's one, he said, that's not close enough. We know we got families over here, and this is a food desert, and that candidate has done little to nothing in order to satisfy that need for you. Then you go out and recruit someone, if you don't decide to do it yourself, who is sensitive to that issue, make it a campaign issue, and then move forward with it.
Yeah. When you said when people get reminded when they get put in the seat, who put them there?
Yeah.
I was watching. I'm a big fan of F is for Family, and it was like season 3, and it's a black guy that worked at the airport. Based in I want to say 70s or whatnot, 70s, late 70s. It's a cartoon. It's like one of those funny cartoons. They had one episode for him in particular, and he was going for a council seat in the and as soon as he got there, man, the guy was there, the mayor, right there, let him know, like, look, we got you here, and you got to do this so we can make the changes for you. And it was just funny how he was in there, and the changes weren't being made because it was it was so funny, but it was so real. I was like, wow, this stuff happens like for real. Like it's been going on for years.
That's the way the business is done. One of my favorite TV series is The West Wing, and that was the late '90s, early 2000s when that show was out.
Okay,
and it is it's an Aaron Sorkin show, and it was written by it was contributed to by folks who actually worked in the White House. Okay. And for anyone who wants to know how politics work, that's the series.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask like what. I mean, for the younger folks, like what they should watch. Like, what would do you know the thing that they should watch or listen to that will be kind of easier to their ear?
Now there was no social media then, right? Because we didn't have iPhones until 2008, 2009. But the principle of how politicians worked in order to move policy, and how the office of the presidency, worked, and how the congressional body worked, how Supreme Court justices came into play. All of that is there, and how people had to be held accountable at certain times. It dealt with loyalty, all of that stuff. So that was a great show, and it was fun for me because at the time I was really sort of just getting into the political side of stuff. At the time I was on WJCT on the television side because I was writing a column in the Free Press, Jacksonville Free Press, called Black Coffee, and it was a social political commentary. So the show that we do now, First Coast Connect, the previous show was called Jacksonville Exchange, which was a video version, a televised version of what I see as the roundtable on First Coast Connect.
Right.
So it was a talking head show, but it really sort of informed me of how to pursue information from politicians and everybody. You know what? But some people are jerks, but for the most part, most elected officials really do want the input of the public. We just have to be better at formatting that and then holding them accountable when that information goes left, or if it's not used at all, or if it's just a play, or if it gets taken off the radar. We have to be better at that.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Well, we're gonna wrap it up, man. Well, we got about 5-10 more minutes. We'll wrap it up because I ain't gonna hold you. But
what do you feel sensitive about? I mean, what if you wanted one thing to change, what would that be?
In regards to politics, or just in?
Well, I tell you what. If you say what it is you want to see change, I can probably figure out a policy initiative or something that's going to touch policy to help that move forward or backwards. Because everything is influenced by policy. Everything.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm sitting here thinking. That's a good question as far as like what I want to see changed. I really feel like the change that I want to see is to me, it might not seem so policy driven. I'm just a real big. I want people to care more. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's just simple as that. I'm sure you can trace it back to something, but I just want people to care more. And I feel like in my world, if people care a little bit more, then things will kind of like change a tad.
Yeah.
Like just I ain't saying it's gonna change a lot, but like I feel we still need to go out and vote. We still need to understand policy. We already do our due diligence when it comes to this, but
Yeah. Well, it ebb and flows. We get ebb and flows about how people are impacted internally, right? One of the old saying is you can't legislate somebody's heart, right? So you can't through policy get people to care more, but you can change behavior through policy. And if people do that long enough, then they might care. They might care. I mean, just think about smoking, right? Think about how people used to be able to smoke anywhere, everywhere, and then all of a sudden, when laws came into effect that said you could no longer smoke indoors, people began to care about people smoking indoors, right? Oh my goodness, they're smoking over there, right? But for a long time, people just had to grin and bear it, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing whether they cared or not. They didn't know if they cared. People were smoking on the airplane, right? Can you imagine that? Just a big tube with smoke in it all the time, trying to carton it off and smoking. Right? Right. But people would care about that kind of stuff now. They do actually care that because they know the impact, the residual impact that secondhand smoke have on other folks. So they do care.
Yeah. I will. Okay, so I have one. One issue that was big with me was the whole the felons being able to vote. That was a touchy issue with me because one, I know people that have that system. It came out and they're doing like extremely well right now. You know what I'm saying? And as simple as they pay they debt to society.
Yeah.
That's one thing that comes to my head right now that I care about. And then when I was looking at the numbers, in regards to that, them numbers was terrible. You know what I'm saying? I think it's in time it'll shift to a little smaller, but
you're right. It doesn't make sense for people who paid their debt to society to not have their rights restored. I mean, we restore their other stuff, right? We help them find a job. We provide them. Folks try to provide them with skills. We try to educate people, but heaven help us if they vote, right? So, we want them to be re-engaged in society, but we don't want them to vote, right? So that doesn't make any sense to a lot of people, and 2/3 of the people who voted in the 2018 election agreed with that, and voted that into law. It is now, what people believe. The critics will say on the other side is that that people will say that the people who would be most impacted by those folks voting don't want to see them vote because they know they will remove them from office, because a lot of the laws and a lot of the policies are the reason why they're sitting there over long periods of time in some cases in the first place, right? Regressive criminal justice laws.
Documentaries.
Yeah. So, that's one of those things where people have to show up and continue to show up in order to get that law satisfied. My guess is that once this 2020 election is over with, that won't be such a big deal any longer. I think that they will probably succumb to that. They will, the people who are fighting against felons, returning citizens being able to vote, will probably back away from it and find another way, to deal with this situation. In other words, 1.7 million people returning to the rolls, potentially returning to the voter rolls, who would likely vote on the liberal side. We don't know that for certain, but that's what one of the motivations for keeping those people off the voter rolls.
So this is what Neil Brown said. This is chestnut checkers.
That's right. Somebody say it's a game on top of the game on top of the game. So we're looking at one thing, you slide a hand, and it's life. It's life, and we listen. If you go back, and this is one of the things I did a few weeks ago. I went back and I watched the PBS documentary, Reconstruction. And one of the things that people need to understand is that when slavery ended in 1865, one of the very first things that happened was that African Americans, former enslaved people, got the right to vote. At the moment they got the right to vote, they came out in droves and voted. And in fact, it wasn't long before the South Carolina legislature was a majority of black men. Can you imagine that? Think about that now. The South Carolina legislature was majority African American. Most of them former slaves running the state of South Carolina. Right? Now, that's power. So much power until they began to pass laws on the local level and use tools like the Ku Klux Klan to remove African Americans from power in these elected seats. Because people knew, and a lot of times these folks were just angry because former enslaved citizens had actually created a better life for themselves. Even after decades of slavery, they have created better lives for themselves than their white counterparts. And that's what they were mad about. They weren't mad because they had black people living down the street from them. They were mad because they were living better than them. They were mad because they created thriving businesses. They were growing crops. They were selling. They were mad because they were prospering, and they were doing it from from the ballot box, using the ballot box.
Right.
Their own rules of liberty and pursuit of happiness. And that's what made people. That's how we got Jim Crow. And it was another 80 years, right, before the Civil Rights Movement and the passing of the Civil Rights Act, before we even begun to think in this direction. So that's a lot of undoing, twice, 3 times. Every time there's a significant law passed to move African Americans forward from the shackles of enslavement, somebody is fighting against it. And which is why we see many of these laws that we see now within these states, especially in Georgia and in Florida and Ohio, voter suppression like laws to keep people from going to the polls. As one wise person said, if it didn't matter whether we voted or not, they wouldn't be fighting so hard to keep us from doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that would be the motivation right there. But wait a minute now. They don't want me to vote. I'm going to do it now.
Right. Right.
That was the rationale we used back in the late 90s with the anti-tobacco campaign. We had you remember the Truth campaign?
Mm-hmm.
And we educated the kids and said, hey, we're not going to tell you not to smoke. What we're going to tell you is that the cigarette companies feel like they can manipulate you into smoking. And the kids said, wait a minute, you mean they think they can tell us what to do? And they rebelled on their own. Mm-hmm. Came up with the Truth campaign all by themselves. Mm. So, we should, if for no other reason, because all of these, these voter suppression laws are going on the books, voter IDs and all this kind of thing, keeping, reducing the hours of early voting, limiting polling places, all those things should be motivation enough for you to want to get into that voting booth, because there's a reason why people don't want you to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Last question, sir. Okay. Media, man. Black man in the media. I don't know. I just look at you as like one of the prestige, like black men and that's representing the media. Like, I don't know if I'm even saying that right. I'm new to this communication media. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm in it, but
no, you in it.
I'm in it, yeah. But like, I want to be able to talk the lingo, if that makes sense. But to me, I feel like you're definitely a prestige, like, what I'm saying, media representative. Like, do you feel like you got any weight on you for delivering that message to people? Like this type of message when it comes to voting and just policy understanding and social justice, all everything that's going on, COVID-19, all of that. Like, do you feel like it's a responsibility on you to do it? Now, I would, for myself, I feel like it's heavy on the doors for me. Yeah. But I would like to know your standpoint.
Well, first of all, thanks for the compliment.
Always, sir.
I do feel like, and for you, I think you have a voice, and a tremendous voice, and people listen to you, and so we use our voice to move messaging. I do feel, because I'll be 59 this year. I feel like I have a responsibility to my community to inform if I have a way to do so. Right. So I got this thing here, right, and I have the privilege of being on the air from time to time, and I have the privilege of being able to function a podcast and on. And let's do it. Let's see if we can inform as many people as we can about what they need to know. Whether that's politics or whether it's any other issue. This is, I don't know, I can't say I was born to do this. I started out in advertising and public relations as a creative, and didn't really intend to be in this part, but this space found me. And if that's the case, then I need not run from it, and I need to make sure I try to stand up stand as tall as I can for the people who are looking to be informed. Mm-hmm. And we'll keep doing it. I don't feel like sometimes you just like anyone else. I don't have to tell you in this whole podcast world, right? People get frustrated, right? Mm-hmm. They go, man, I can't even people listening, and I'm just doing this thing, and I don't even know, and where is it gonna go? Well, I think you keep going and you keep growing, and somebody's listening. You don't know what influence you might have on somebody at any moment in time. And so that's where we are. I work with Melissa Ross and Heather Schatz over at WJCT I'm privileged to also be on their board of directors. I do think that it's important that we encourage more voices in this space. We need Black journalists for certain. We need most of the I do have a relationship with the 3 affiliates here, and I'm always encouraging, critiquing, about their voice on the air, and hoping my little input helps, because we need more Black voices. The Times Union, they don't have any African American journalists. At least I haven't seen any. Maybe they do. I haven't seen any. We need that, and I know they have their own struggles, right? They're just trying to stay relevant and profitable, and in the business of journalism. But we need more voices. We need people to be able to tell our story, and tell the story from our perspective. Because when you're in the room, right, and somebody say something crazy, you get to check that, right? And if you don't, then you've shrunken your responsibility. I never hesitate. I don't care what people, what they say. Did you just say that? You're not going to say that on the air, are you?
Right.
Well,
right.
I did. So we see, a lot of situations where people let information get out that's uninformed, and we know, as people who are on, in the space, that sometimes we have to code switch. We got to make sure that we're speaking a language that everyone can understand, and then sometimes we get to be relaxed like we are now.
Right.
Yeah. Right. But the message is, the voice is we need the voices. We need more voices. That's why when you all hosted the event where you had the podcasters out, right? I was in heaven, man. It was great just to see so many people at it.
Yeah, it's a lot of us out there. Some people are just doing it for entertainment, which is cool, but a lot of people that have that voice to be heard, that people would automatically hear. I try to get them to understand that they are, I hate to say they're a form of media, but they are a form of media. Like, people will listen to you, and there's a lot of black voices that have the capability of like making some necessary changes. Even with Color Jacks Blue, like Color Jacks Blue, it's a lot of amplifiers, a lot of artists on there that are really effective, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the arts play a role in the voices of things to come when it comes to voting and everything else in the community of Jacksonville.
Yeah, I was talking with my son about this, man. I can't imagine what it would have been like to have tools like this. You know how much it would cost to do a production like this back in the 90s, man? It would.
I don't even want to hold that camera. The camera
really
outdoors, and you got to shoot correctly too. Like, you mess up.
Yeah. I remember when we were trying to get out in the early 2000s. I think it was mid 2000s. I was trying to get one of those Canon, one of those cameras so I could shoot stuff. I was like, man, that thing costs $3,000. When I worked at WJCT, we had those big field cameras, ENG cameras we used to call them. Man, those things cost $10,000-$15,000 a piece, and they came in these huge cases. The audio board was a mile long. All of the mics cost, $700-$800 a piece, and it was crazy. And those were lob mics. It was like, man. And but now you can do all of this, and from the comforts of your own home, thanks to COVID, right? We've all been sort of normalized with that.
Yeah.
So no excuses, right? We can broadcast, and we can reach people, and we can tell them what they need to know, whether it is about politics or it's about education, or it's about how to build a business, how to support businesses. We've got the tools, man, and there's no reason why, like I was saying earlier, there's no reason why today, more than any other time in this existence, that we can throw an idea against the wall and see if it sticks or not.
Yeah.
There's no excuse right now, because everything has changed. Everything is upside down.
Yeah.
Thanks to COVID. So, people are scrambling for how to make it work. And and they know they can't do it the way they've been doing it before, because if they do, they may end up going dark. So let's get at it, man.
Sounds good. Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Charles, for blessing the first episode of the Color Jacks Blue. If I need to have you again, hopefully I can bring you on, man.
Anytime, man.
Listen, it's gonna be going on. It's not gonna stop after January. I mean, after November. Like, it's not gonna stop. So we're gonna keep going and going and going. Real quick before we close out of here, my peoples, early voting started today. So please make sure you're doing your due diligence to make sure that you get that correct, okay? And the deadline to get to request the ballot is the 8th, correct? That's that Saturday. So this Saturday. So if you're gonna do the voter by mail action, please do the request like now. Like, do it right now and get it together. Do understand we are in a COVID situation, so a lot of people are not going out to vote, and then so you got to deal with that type of situation. And I'm going to talk about that in probably episode 2 or 3 about this whole voter by mail situation, because it's about nuts. So I just want everybody to really do the diligence and pay attention to these dates. Like, today is the first day for early voting. Voter by mail registrations the 8th, and then primaries is the 15th, correct?
18th.
Oh, the 18th. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the 18th. Almost. Listen, I is trying to get it right.
It's all right, man. It's all right.
Nevertheless, to my people, please, 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 please do your due diligence and get your information correct, and vote. But in my words, make sure you do the homework first. All right, don't go out there just to vote. Please do your homework. Ask questions, listen to the podcast, because there's gonna be a lot of information that goes on in regards to that. And also, please follow Color Jacks Blue on Instagram and Facebook and get all the information. And follow Charles Griggs too, man, because that guy be on the radio talking some great stuff, man. And please go listen to his podcast, Real Talk. Specifically, please go listen to the OB episode 1 and 2. It's 2 parts. Please go listen to those. Great. It's great to see black men talking like that. People you don't want to miss it. Please go check it out. So
thanks for that.
Where can they follow you, sir?
At Charles L. Griggs on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook as well. So follow me there. And the podcast is at Real Talk This Show. I believe it is. Always through the program.
And I put all the your Twitter handle and the podcast information in the notes. So I'm gonna go back and change everything up. So
cool, great.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you, man.
Before I put the audio out, I mean, usually I send it to the guests and let them listen to it. But I mean, if you're cool,
I'm good, baby.
All right. All right, we'll talk soon, man.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
All right, peace.
All right, so my people, thank y'all so much. Please go hit the follow button on Color Jacks Blue, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. This is Mr. Al Pete. It's going to be more and more episodes rolling out, y'all. So we will be in your neck. All right, Color Jacks Blue podcast. We are out.